Hello everyone, this is Lem, aka the Lemesis. I haven't done a video in quite some time, and I felt the need to make a video today because I wanted to put my 2 cents in on what's been going on with a game that I really love to play. So as you can see on the screen, that game is marvelsnap, and I think this video is going to be quite long, if you could probably already see. And I want to give my input. I've been playing this game since October, or I think it was early October when the game released. I really enjoy it. The major theme that I believe brought me here was the fact that it's Marvel. And I would actually argue that that brought a lot of people to this game. Maybe not all the people who comment on YouTube, but a lot of the people who probably play this game enjoy Marvel as well. So what I want to go through is bring up an idea that I've kind of formulated over the many months of playing the game. I'm unfortunately a person that you guys would also call a whale. I spent a lot of money on this game, again, because I love Marvel. So it really wouldn't matter. You know, most Marvel games that I participate in, I do spend a decent amount of money in because I just love the license. I love the lore associated with it, the comics, etc. Now, I'm not the most well-versed Marvel fan, right? I can't rattle off all the specifics on each particular hero or villain. I know a lot of great people who can and do that. I know them personally, and I know there's some YouTubers online who can do that as well, so I'm not gonna sit here and try to portray myself like that. But I'm a very principled person, as you can see, but not perfect. And you'll see as we talk through this. I want to say my biggest gripe with the game, as I start with sharing with you what I think we should change or not change, or the ideas that I think we should have moving forward, is I think that there's a generational difference in the mindset of the age and the life that I grew up in, and compared to a lot of the people today. Doesn't mean people today don't think the way that I do, but I'm seeing this generally in the comments when I watch on YouTube videos from different YouTubers, streamers, when I watch Twitch, different types of social media accounts. I know that doesn't represent the masses, but it's just, you know, it's a reference point for what I'm about to say. And one big thing that I have an issue with is everyone seems to approach this game with wanting to nerf everything. And for me, that's very frustrating, because as a Marvel fan, and I'm sure there are others who will disagree with me, but as a Marvel fan, I don't play this game so that I can have a nerfed, dumbed down version of Marvel heroes and villains. I'm here because I'm excited to interact with the entire lore of Marvel, learn about heroes and villains that I've never even discovered or read about, and I want to have the most fun, the most powerful experience that I possibly can. And I think that a lot of people think that in order for you to have a great experience, that the game needs to be balanced, which I don't disagree with, but they believe that the only way to balance this said game is by nerfing everything. And I would disagree with that wholeheartedly. And I'm going to try to make my case and my point by sharing a few examples, and then hopefully this again won't go too long. And you know, I believe that this will probably be like my one and only video on marvelsnap. Maybe I'll do a few more depending on what people say in the comments, because, you know, sometimes people could be extremely hateful, and I'm not really here for that. So but I am here to hopefully get the attention of the developers at marvelsnap, Ben Brode, to whom it may concern. Hopefully we can get some traction with this video, and that you guys can potentially make changes for the better for the future of this game, because I do believe the recommendations that I'm going to bring are really great recommendations. Of course, they're my own. And I really think that once people hear them, they'll understand. And again, there'll probably be holes. I'm not perfect, but if we come together as a community and really think about these things, I think that we can cover up a lot of those holes and areas, because I think this is the style of game that most of us would enjoy. Another perspective that I bring before I get started is that I'm not the typical card gamer that you see on YouTube or Twitch who currently cover the game. And that is another frustrating point for me, because I think what's happening is that one, Ben Brode apparently was one of the either owner, developer, whatever it may be, whatever position he had at a particular game called Hearthstone. Now, I played that game very briefly. I wouldn't even consider myself a person who was actually a fan of that game in any way, shape, or form. I might have played 1 or 2 games. I know I had a friend who tried to introduce me into it, but again, the lore didn't grab me to drag me into the game, so I was one and done. And again, I'm here for Marvel Snap, and I think the players or the YouTubers who try to push the changes, like nerfing this and nerfing that, I think they're trying to blend multiple card games into one, basically taking the history that they have from other card games like Hearthstone and etc. I don't even know those games, right? That's how much of a mobile card gamer I am. But they're taking their experiences from these previous games and they're trying to implement them into Marvel Snap. And I think that's the mistake. I think that's why you see such polarizing opinions on this game and people get so frustrated so easily. And I think we're missing the big major point, right? So a lot of people talk about a particular card. In this case, if we get started, Leech. So Leech is a really frustrating card in the game right now for some people. For me, it is not. And I'm going to try to bring some of the lore out. So I'll be reading a little bit here and then, of course, sharing my opinion as we go along. But I want to give some information on some of these cards from the Marvel lore. I grabbed this information from a couple websites, of course, Marvel Snap, and then marvelsnap.fan, and then other websites like Comic Vine and Marvel Fandom. So, I mean, just for plagiarizing purposes, this video is not monetized, but I just want to kind of, express the fact that this is not my information. I don't know this off the top of my head. So, Leech, he's a former Morlock and frequently a friend of the X-Men. He's a green-skinned Leech who was orphaned as a toddler. His parents left him to die. When his mutations became apparent, he has the power to negate all superhuman abilities within 10 yards of him. So as you can see, Leech in the game of Marvel Snap, he removes the abilities from all cards in your opponent's hand. He's a 5/3. So just to go a little bit into his history as well, he's about 4'2", 67 pounds. Of course, his eyes are white. His skin is green. He's bald. Leech has no nose, which is an interesting feature, right? He's an American citizen. And then some other interesting facts about him is Leech speaks broken English and acts and speaks in the third person. Leech always looks to be around 12 years old, roughly. So he's a 5'3", and everyone is pushing to nerf him, or at least the majority of people who complain about him want to nerf him. And I want to suggest that we should buff all characters and never nerf. I want to introduce an idea that I have for this game to kind of help balance the game out so that we can keep a lot of cards the way they are and maybe change cards that have been nerfed back to the original status. So a nemesis counter is this concept of looking into the Marvel lore, finding out that particular hero or villain's nemesis or arch nemesis, and then when that card is played, as your opponent plays that card, in this instance, Leech. If we go over some of the weaknesses of Leech, unfortunately for Leech, he's been a target of many who seek to harm him or use him for his powers. Such foes have included the Marauders, the Anti-Mutant Right Organization, demons, and even members of the Gene Nation. Former Morlocks who escaped a mutant massacre and thought Leech a disgrace to their kind. So, we already know in the game, Cosmo is a common on-reveal counter, right? He is a on-reveal to remove the abilities from all cards in the opponent's hand. But we could introduce newer cards into the game. To go into specifics, Marauders, or some of the members of the Marauders, is Mr. Sinister, Arclight, Blockbuster, Harpoon, Multiple Man, and Vertigo. Now, Multiple Man and Mr. Sinister are already in the game, and it would be really cool to see this nemesis counter in the game, which basically would mean whatever the card ability is currently right now, you keep that. But then there would be a nemesis counter ability that would be added to all of the cards in the game. And you would basically go into the lore of Marvel to make that nemesis counter that particular hero or villain. Basically just disabling the ability to use that ability. So when Spider-Man is present on the board and Rhino comes out, Rhino will not be hindered by Spider-Man's web. And we'll get into that in the later in the video. In this case, if Mr. Sinister is on the board, we could have a cool animation that would show that Leech would be afraid of Mr. Sinister or other members of the Marauders or Anti-Mutant Right Organization like Graydon Creed and Cameron Hodge and Matthew Reisman, the Leper Queen, Eli Bard, Reverend Sinclair, the Gene Nation. Some of the members of the Gene Nation is the Membrane, Fever Pitch, Iron Maiden, Vessel, Hemingway, and the list can continually go on and on. And what's even cool is that I mentioned that Leech is like afraid of demons. Well, the Hood is in the game. And when you play the Hood, you get a one cost, 6 power demon in your hand. So again, I'm not saying let's nerf the ability. I'm saying we should have nemesis counters that give both parties the ability to have agency over choosing how to play the game. So Leech can still negate the ability of cards, but if you just so happen to play said counters with nemesis counters like the demon from Hood, or you play Mr. Sinister, or you play some of these cards that haven't even been added to the game, then automatically Leech will get scared, and then the person who's been leeched and had their abilities of their cards removed, they'd be able to play the cards and have the ability and their effects actually happen in the game in the order. So basically how this would work out in turn order is Leech would be played by the opponent. Let's say they reveal first, and then I'm the one who got leeched. When I play, maybe on turn 6, the first card that I need to play would be like a 1/6 demon. So then I would play that 1/6 demon, then Leech would see that card. Oh, I'm scared. The next few cards that get revealed would automatically have their abilities done. So, or if the card is played beforehand, when Leech plays, then Leech will run scared, and that leads to the next suggestion that I have in the game. So people are going to be annoyed, like, okay, so there's nemesis counters. It seems to only really work one way. So another suggestion that I have is it's like when you play Daredevil, when you have 2 Daredevils out, they cancel each other out, so nothing happens. So it seems like a moot point. Well, I'm suggesting also with this nemesis counter that if the ability of said card gets canceled because of a nemesis counter, then we should buff the original card that's played so that the person who played Leech is not going to just put down a stat of a 5/3 and just get absolutely nothing when it comes to power on the board. So a suggestion, this is kind of the things that we can debate on, or that like Second Dinner can really look into if they choose to adopt this idea. But basically, Leech would be a cost 5, power 3 with the ability. And then if the ability is countered, or Leech has a card on the board that already counters, when Leech gets played to the board, Leech will be a cost 5 and a power of a 5 or a 6 without the ability. So now Leech can just play as stats, right? Because you might build your entire deck around, ooh, I want to leech people. But then if they incorporate this nemesis counter, it's going to be frustrating when you have this card in your deck that is going to be rendered useless because you're going to have a lot of people who want to counter it. And this I'm going to extrapolate over multiple cards. You're going to see a very common theme that I'm trying to enable and empower both parties who are playing the game the power, right? If the person who wants to play Leech wants to play Leech, and then the person who doesn't want to be leeched doesn't want to be leeched, you both have the ability to do so. Instead of just being so biased in one way, where you create this mutiny of individuals who just want to stand on one side of the community compared to the other side of the community, and no one wins, right? Well, the majority of people still won't win, right? Because people will be frustrated that they spent their money on Leech, right? You might go spend your money, you get Leech for free. Well, again, I said earlier, I'm a whale, right? So when I first started playing this game, I spent a lot of money to speed up acquiring my pool 3 cards, or technically series 3 cards. And for me, it's frustrating that someone like myself can spend money, and others who spend money in the game to acquire said cards, and then you try to get a particular deck, and then all of a sudden, second dinner, not the community playing a specific style, second dinner makes the changes, pulls the rugs from underneath you. Now you're left with, wow, I spent X amount of dollars on this particular game, and that card is completely useless. And that's what I think doing something like this will eliminate that. It will stop the frustrations and make the gaming experience much more enjoyable. And again, these suggestions are for these specific cards, but I think this should be something widespread on every single card in the game. So hopefully you'll get the theme as we go through a few more. So the next card is going to be a little controversial, but the next card I think that we should adjust or change back based on the reasoning that I used for the first card with Leech is Leader. Now, currently, Leader, again, let's break him down. Where does he come from? Some attributes about him. I couldn't find too much, but gamma radiation exposure turns Samuel Stearns into the hyper-intelligent megalomaniac leader who heads an international spy ring that steals scientific secrets. Right now, Leader is currently a 6/7 on reveal. Copy all cards your opponents played to the location right of here, but on your side. He previously was a 6/3 or a 6/4. He was 6/4, then he got bumped down to a 6/3. I wasn't here in beta, so maybe he was a different number, but he was on reveal. Copy all cards the opposing player has played this turn, but on your side. So, most of you probably turned the video off now. You don't want to listen to me, but I want you to hear me out. Leader is a necessary quote-unquote evil for the game. One, I think a lot of people here, again, are here for Marvel, right? They see a card like Leader, they see a card like Thor. I know when I first started playing this game, I was big on like, man, these are just my favorite heroes. I just want to put all of my favorite heroes or all of my favorite villains in a deck and see how well that deck does. I don't really care about the synergy. I just like Spider-Man. I used to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So my 3 members of my team that I used to play with would be Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Captain America. So of course I want to grab those 3 heroes and put them in a deck and see how well they do. I'm also a huge fan of villains. Now when it comes to Leader, I didn't know too much about Leader, but I did like Leader's ability. And one thing that I'll say is this, is I think most of the people who complained about Leader just didn't have Leader. And then the other people who did have Leader, who still felt like Leader wasn't good for the game, only complained because of one major issue that I think people keep ignoring. Cards are not easily acquired and accessible in Marvel Snap, and there's not enough counters for this card in the game. Now again, this is on reveal, and this is Cosmo is the typical card that's used, but you gotta kind of guess where they're gonna throw the Leader down. If you're a smart player, you can typically guess where they're gonna put it. And, you know, and I'm not here to insult people, but when it comes to Leader, we need a card like this in the game. What he was doing was really not that overpowered, right? There were a ton of cards in the game that could counter him. I played Leader. I enjoyed playing Leader. Did I play Leader all the time? No. I just love villains in games, so that's why I love playing Leader. And I was kind of trolling everyone that I played against because I knew how people were so frustrated by it. But again, if we push back on the real main idea here, is that Leader just wasn't accessible and there weren't counters in the game. So here's what I'm suggesting. All you have to do is take a little bit of time and look up some Marvel lore around Leader, and you'll understand how we can easily counter him, how there's opportunities with cards in the game right now to stop this particular card, right? So 1, we talked about Cosmo. 2, I suggest that we move the card back to a 6/3. I'm okay with even being a 6/1. Bring Leader back, the original power. which is on reveal, copy all cards the opposing player has played this turn, but on your side. But his nemesis counter, if we go into some of his weaknesses, despite his limitless intelligence and supreme knowledge, his effectiveness is greatly hampered by his own arrogance, immaturity, and obsession with defeating the Hulk, which constantly causes him to lose sight of necessary details and act prematurely, causing the ruin of his schemes. His egotism has led him to embark on mad and practical schemes to turn the rest of humanity into the green-skinned being like himself. So, we already know Cosmo's a counter. He's obsessed with the Hulk. So, what other Hulk heroes are in the game currently as we speak? Well, we have the Hulk, we have She-Hulk, and then there's Sakaar, which is Hulk's son. And then there's another hero called, I can't pronounce this correctly, but it's Heroim. There are some foes that Leader has issues with, that his own egotism causes his failure. So imagine now you play Leader, but then the person plays She-Hulk and the Hulk, right? Let's say they're playing an ongoing deck, and then they destroy Electro with Carnage, and then at the end they skip turn 5 so that they can play She-Hulk and the Hulk and actually have 7 power, and that opposing person plays Leader. Well, as soon as the Hulk and She-Hulk appear, what I'm suggesting is Leader with his power is a 6'3", 6'2", 6'1", right? With his old power copying. But without his power, when you play one of those counters, he bumps up to a 6'8", or a 6'7", or a 6'10". I'm not debating what the bump up should be. I'm just kind of leaving that out in the air. The biggest thing that I'm saying is that we should have these overpowered cards in the game and not just look to nerf every single card in the game and remove the fun from the game. That's what's making this whole experience, in my opinion, really boring as I play the game. It seems like every deck that gets impacted by these nerfs basically kind of turn into a version of Patriot, which I can't stand. Like, I cannot stand Patriot decks. And when I play with Patriot decks, I can get Patriot decks to be like 18, like the game. First off, you get matchmaked, which we don't even need to talk about that now. The matchmaking is terrible. There's a lot of YouTubers who talk about that. But when you play Patriot decks, I'll get games where it's like, oh, it's 18 to 15 and I win. Or it's 22 in one lane to 26 and ooh, I win just barely by my chinny chin chin. And that's what I think's happening now, that they keep nerfing every single card that's fun to kind of get you like gotcha, when really, like, that's not what they intended when they originally made this game. Like, think about it. Look at Leader. He copied all your cards. That's obnoxious, right? Look at Leech. You have an entire deck. He removes the abilities. That's obnoxious. This game was not meant to be balanced in that sense. This game was meant to be obnoxious, but there need to be obnoxious balances to help counter the meta that's going on. And again, when I suggest these things, it will discourage people, right? If you could just have a Hulk in your deck, and you know there's people out there playing Leader, and you may have Hulk and Hood to stop Leech, well then guess what? People will start to make different choices, different chains. Man, I don't really like putting, Leech in my deck if I'm just gonna run into a Hood with his demon, or why would I put Leader in the deck when people can easily fit in Hulk in there, right? There's cards in the game that don't have abilities that could benefit the overall healthiness of the game by just having counters, being a nemesis counter. So that's a suggestion for Leader. I would love to see Leader restored to his original ability. I think it would be really fun. And think about it. What's so silly to me was it was the meta that everyone was annoyed by, but it was something that everybody was doing, which means it was a card that was fun. So the pressure should be on Second Dinner to create more cards like that are fun, right? Because eventually, if Leader becomes boring, I don't want to play Leader anymore, then you want to play another souped up deck because a new card just came out that's really overpowered that, man, even Leader can't handle, right? Again, if you give people agency to counter the decks or the cards that are annoying them, people will make the decision. Don't make the decision be a decision Second Dinner makes that just says, hey, we're just going to come in here and make everything fun for everyone. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. I spent a lot of money on this game. It's not fun. I know the decks that people play. I'm pretty good at the game. I've been to Infinite multiple times. There's no desire to go to Infinite anymore. There's no desire to really keep playing the game, especially when you spend the money on this game and you go, yeah, I want to try that deck out. That seems fun. Sure. I watch a YouTuber. That seems cool. And then when I get that card, boom, they're just going to nerf it. I don't know when this video is going to come out, but they're already talking about nerfing, I believe it was Thanos and Leech coming up soon. And it's like, dude, this is stupid. Stop nerfing every card in the game. Make the card be whatever you intended it to be from the beginning, and just give us the ability to counter. Which leads to another point that I'm always frustrated with, is that I believe Second Dinner creates the problem and then for a reason to give you their solution, which is they don't want to give us all of their cards quickly, right? They want to slowly leech them out to us over time because they don't want to just have all these cards given to us. They want to create that frenzy that, man, I need this card. So it's like they create this super overpowered card and everyone's so, man, this is OP, let's go buy the premium pass. And then once everyone spent their money on it, they just pull the rug underneath you and just say, hey, sorry, we said in the fine print that this card could be subject to change, and tough noogies is not a big deal, which in my opinion, they're just robbing you, right? And everyone wants to just sit here and explain away why that's okay. That's retarded, right? That's I can say something crazy, but it's like being in a relationship and telling the girl before you get with her, hey, I might swing on you and punch you, but I told you. And then when now she's in the relationship, I'm swinging on her. That's retarded. It's still wrong, right? Whether I told you in advance or not, it's still wrong. What Second Dinner is doing is wrong. They can tell me that, hey, we're gonna rob you blind, but if you want to do this, just know that I might rob you blind. That's wrong, right? We should call them out for that. So again, let's stop nerfing these cards. It's extremely frustrating, and it hurts the morale of their customer, right? And I'm one of those customers, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has these same frustrations. So let's go to the next card, since I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about a leader, but another card, Aero. So everyone's so frustrated with Aero. I don't see why. It's not a big deal. Again, if we had Nemesis counters in the game, this would all go away. If there were actual cards being released in the game that would give you agency to choose the deck you have and to stop this from happening, or to even reverse it, where maybe she would have put the card there and then you reverse it back, that could also help as well. But let me go over Aero and some of her history. So with the power of the wind at her command, Li Ling is the master of the sky and the protector of Shanghai. So she is a 5/7. On reveal, move all enemy cards played this turn to this location. She was a 5/8. I believe she might have been a 5/9 at one point. Move all enemy cards played this turn to this location. My suggestion is really simple. Keep it the same. I would even buff her back to where she was before, 5/8, 5/9. And then basically say, and I would be okay with maybe if you say you move the cards in turn order, right? Because that makes sense. So if you played card 1 and then card 2 and then card 3, and there's only 3 slots in a location that she can move those cards to, and you play maybe 4 cards out, well then the first card you played, the second card you play, and the third card you play should be the only cards that move to that said location, not just kind of random. So I would be okay with that. But overall, I suggest that we keep her exactly the same. If you look into some of her weaknesses, when the Dark Elf of Malekith brought his War of the Realms to Midgard, Cinder and the Queen of Cinders, and there's a couple names here I don't know how to pronounce, but the daughter of Surtur takes the opportunity to transform Earth into a fiery hellscape. She uses her fire goblins and flames to attack the Pacific Rim, and Aero faces the Mad Queen alongside the new agents of Atlas. So some of her foes are Dark Elf, Malekith, Queen of Cinders, and with her fire goblins, and there's a Mosoplium. I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm not going to waste time on that. But my point is, those are new cards that could be introduced into the game. And those cards could have their own unique abilities, completely separate. But they could also have nemesis counters to Aero. And then if those cards are easily accessible, then all they would do is either one, hinder. I mean, in this case, that's exactly what they would do. They would just hinder the ability of Aero moving the cards. But then, what happens to Aero? Then it goes back to the same suggestion that I had. Instead of Aero being a 5/7, because she could just move all of your cards to the location, she should get buffed dynamically mid-game. So, her nemesis is out. She can't move the cards. So now she gets buffed to a 5/9 or a 5/10. Or maybe a 5/12, right? Because you do have Red Skull in the game. He's a 5/15. So she could be the first 5/12 in the game. Because I think we have Dr. Oct at 5/10. So she should become a 5/12 when that happens. So again, if you have those counters, if you have those nemesis counters, it gives the person playing Aero at least something, right? Oh, well, she becomes a 5/12. That's still enough points because the guy only played a couple of small cards. Then that person gets the agency they want, right? Okay, I really want Aero. I'll still choose her. Yeah, I'll get countered, but yeah, I can do this. And then the other person says, you know what, I'm tired of getting Aero, man. This is so annoying. So let me use this new card, right? I can use Surtur, or I can use Malekith. And Malekith has some cool, unique ability that I can't think of off the top of my head that synergizes with my deck. But then I can also stop Aero from moving my cards, which is really cool. And then the same thing could be said when, let's say, Aero moves first. Well, right? Aero might be played first and she moves your cards. Those locations still happen the way that they do, right? I also think there should be where, like, if you move to this location, I think it's the Kingpin location, it automatically destroys the card. I think that should still be in place. But then there also should be cards like Luke Cage. I had this idea where there should be a low-costing card that's like the Ghost, but it's Luke Cage-ish, where you know how Luke Cage does not allow all the cards on your side to be decreased at all or reduced in power. Well, there should be something like that as well. Like the Blob, right? The Blob could just, when he's on the board, he puts his arms around everyone and no one can move. So then that if you play a low cost card like the Blob, well then now that person knows I can't Aero that individual. So again, see how simple that would easily negate Aero if you had a card like that out. And then you can build a deck where you're like, you know, I'm tired of Aero. I'm just going to throw the Blob in here. And he's like a 2-cost 1 or a 2-cost 3. You might want to buff him up a little bit because you don't want to put the Blob in there for just a 2-1, kind of like Luke Cage is just a 2-1. He should be buffed as well. But that could easily solve that problem. Now let's go to the next card, a card that I think most people probably don't think about, but would eventually get to, and that's Cosmo. So right now what we've done is we went from leader, and then, you know, basically we've cascaded from card to card to card. We're frustrated with this card, we'll go to that card. I bet you Cosmo's next. As soon as they nerf Leech and they nerf Thanos, and then they're gonna nerf Aero, Cosmo's gonna get caught next because Cosmo actually does not have any other card in the game to counter him. And it's stupid. So Cosmo is a telepathic Russian space dog who serves as the head of security of nowhere. He's proven to be an invaluable ally to the Guardians of the Galaxy. So right off the bat, when you play Cosmo, he probably shouldn't stop the on reveals of the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's his lore, right? So there should be like positives as well. There's some other things that I'm going to bring up near the end of the game, near the end of the video as well, to talk about how, you know, there are cool dynamic things this game could adopt from like other games that I've played. But, you know, a little more about Cosmo. He's 70 pounds. He's brown. His hair color is like golden yellow. He's a golden retriever / Labrador mix. He's born in Russia. His known master is the Soviet space program. And some of his distinguishing features is his eyes glow light blue when using his powers. So as you know, he's a 3/3. All reveal abilities won't happen at this location. I suggest that he stays a 3/3 and with his ability, but we should come up with cards that counter him, and when he gets countered, and this is like one of those wherever the card is on the board, right? Wherever that nemesis counter is on the board, it should stop the ability or his ongoing ability because it's a direct counter to him, and he should become like a 3/6 or a 3/7 without the ability. So now you play Cosmo, right? And his on-reveal abilities won't happen at this location, but then some of his weaknesses, let's go over them, right? Certain poisons can dampen Cosmo's powers. Psychic overload, when Adam Warlock became Magus for an instant to attack a powerful telepath, the presence of the powerful psychic entity caused a nosebleed for both Cosmo and Mantis. And I've read other places that just villains or heroes with extremely strong psychic abilities can hinder Cosmo. So like when Jean Grey comes out, why aren't we allowing cards like that, or existing cards in the game like Professor Xavier? When Professor Xavier locks down a location, he should also have an ability to stop Cosmo from stopping on reveal abilities, because he has extremely strong psychic powers, right? Professor Xavier's beating the brakes off of Cosmo, let's be real. So why is Cosmo so overpowered and ridiculous when clearly we should use the Marvel lore to counterbalance the game? Again, you keep these cards as is, but then the power is in the person choosing the card, adding the card to their deck. So if you get beat by Leech because you didn't want to put in those counters, well, that's on you, right? So then you can't really be upset at the game. You can't be upset at second dinner. They gave you the options, you just didn't choose it. That to me makes more sense. It enables the player, not putting the onus on second dinner. The onus you put on second dinner is just, bro, give me the tools that I need, right? Like, I need to build a fence so that I can stop this thing from coming in. But if I don't have wood and I don't have nails, I can't do anything, right? But if you have the woods and the nails, you can do that. So this is the same situation. If you have the tools, you can actually do that. So some of the foes that are opposed to Cosmo is Abyss, Cardinal Raker, Magus or Adam Warlock, Matriarch, Mr. E, Schumer Barath, Thanos. So it'd be really cool to see that when you play one of those cards that are on the opposing side, he automatically gets his ability hindered. I think that's something that we should be doing. And then again, you still reward the player who played that particular card that got countered, right? You stop that ability, so you get to do your on reveals, but then they get a buff. So you know, when I stop Cosmo, bro, he's about to be a 5, he's about to be a 3/6. So I need to play enough to stop that. And then when you lose, then it's like it's a healthy way of losing, right? Because you know, I did what I wanted to do, and guess what? They built a whole deck to stop what I wanted to do, and vice versa. And then it seems fair. So, because that's something that I did for quite some time. I spent a lot of time just building decks. I hated building decks just trying to win. I know that sounds really stupid, but it's like, I just want to play a game where I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do, and let's just see, based on what you do, who wins. But then when your whole deck is built around, let me just stop everyone from doing what they're doing, that to me is not fun. That is why I think the game has so many polarizing opinions, because people can't just do move decks, right? One, there's not a lot of options, and two, so many people have these counter cards. When I message support of Marvel Snap, I think it's ridiculous for support to tell me when I'm frustrated with something, you know what, maybe you should just add some of these counter cards into your deck. And it's like, well, no, right? I don't want to use Cosmo and use Shang Chi and use Enchantress. By the time you turn around, you're selecting 4 or 5 cards that are just there for counters. How can I build any synergy in any of my decks? That was what I think makes the game so boring. And that's why I think causes the issues with the game, with people, the way they think about it, because Marvel Snap is forcing everyone to play the game a particular way. That's why the metas keep changing the way that they do, because they're not giving you the tools. They're limiting you with resources, saying, hey, here's what I'm going to give you. All these other cards are going to be extremely boring. There's nothing you can do with these cards that hasn't already been done. And then I'm just going to nerf this really cool card over here, and then you're going to be frustrated. That's why we have the issues that we have in this game. Again, these Nemesis counters really help. Let's move on to another card that people complain about, Shuri, right? No one gave a rip about Shuri like 2-3 months ago. No one cared about Shuri. No one was complaining about her, but guess what? Because Leader's gone, they're like, you know what? This other card over here is pissing me off too. That's the same thing. It's so frustrating. Stop complaining. Only buffs. Just do buffs. No nurse. And let's talk about Shuri. She's a younger sister of T'Challa and most recently a queen. As such, she has been the ruler of Wakanda, an African nation known to be one of the most technologically advanced civilizations on Earth. She's returned from Dajalia, the plane of memory, with a new set of abilities to aid her brother in ruling Wakanda. She's 5'10", about $145, brown eyes, black hair. She's Wakandian. She was born in Wakanda. She's single. She was Black Panther, princess, queen, and of course, you know some of her relatives: Ramonda, T'Challa, Hunter, her adopted brother, and so on, right? So her ability is, on reveal, double the power of the next cards you play. Now, she doesn't really have any weaknesses besides the fact that she's just a human, right? So, but she does have some foes. So, same concept. I think when you play her, she's another card that my Nemesis counter without the ability is going to bump her up quite a bit. But with her ability, she should be a 4/2. Stay as is. She doubles the next card you play. But if somehow she gets countered, then she should turn into a 4/7 or 8. Maybe more, but she's a 4/7 or 8 without her ability. So some of the foes that can counter her are some cards already in the game. So we have Black Dwarf, Doctor Doom, Killmonger, Claw, Namor's already in the game, Porcupine, Proxima Midnight, and of course Thanos. Thanos just he's just the nemesis for everyone, which is glorious. I love that. But again, keep Shuri as is. Add something like the Nemesis counter, where you pull from the lore. You can even pull from the comics. You can even incorporate Marvel Comics Entertainment or that app with this game. You're doing this cross-selling thing where you can bring people to the comic book lore, look into it. Oh, that's really cool. You can read the issue of number 18 in 2001 where Shuri faced Thanos, and we can read that and we can get a little history. You should be able to click on the card and look at some of the comic book issues and such. This would be really, really cool for the game. And then again, people can still play Shuri, still double the next card they want, but they have to look out like, yo, if Killmonger comes out, not only does he kill all the 1-cost cards, he also hinders Shuri from doubling. So, you know, it's just things like that that I really think that the second dinner should incorporate. And then again, when Shuri doesn't double the next card, then Shuri should get a buff of herself, of her own. So that way when I'm playing the game, I'm like, man, I know if Killmonger comes out, yeah, Killmonger will kill my 1-cost cards, but I don't have any 1-cost cards. But someone could just have Killmonger in the game just because they don't want to deal with Shuri, or they end the game with Doctor Doom. So stuff like this would be really unique for the game. There should be direct interactions with specific opposing threats, you know, like Wolverine and Sabretooth. There should be direct nemesis of each other, right? So when Wolverine comes out and then Sabretooth comes out, Wolverine should directly strike at Sabretooth, right? And maybe Sabretooth hinders Wolverine's ability from doubling every time he gets destroyed because he's so focused on him. But then Wolverine should get buffed, right? Wolverine's no longer a 2/2, which I believe that's what he is. He should just automatically become like a 2/6. And then the same thing with Sabretooth. Sabretooth goes back to your hand and he's a 0/4. So maybe Sabretooth becomes like a what is he? I think he's he becomes a 0/4. I think he's like is he a 4-cost? I don't quite remember off the top of my head, but he can bump up to maybe a power of 4 or 5, right? Because we all like Wolverine more than Sabretooth, so you know, you can give him one less point. But that would be super cool. The ability gets hindered as soon as Wolverine is out. And again, these interactions only happen when your opponent plays a card. So when you have all these cards in your deck and you play them, they synergize well. That's the one benefit of having a digital card game. So let's move on to another one, the Mad Titan. He's come up a couple times already in what I think is funny about him is that it's not necessarily Thanos, the card itself, that's the problem. He did get a buff. He was a 6'8", and now he's a 6'11". But it's really the Power Stone that is the issue, right? That one, it went from an 8 to 11, but the Power Stone has to be played, and all the stones have to be played, number one. And then the Power Stone has to be on the board in order for Thanos to be, you know, a 621. So let's read up on Thanos. An Eternal with a deviant gene, making him unique and extremely powerful, even amongst his own kind, above all else. Thanos loves and worships the mistress Death. Few can equal his intelligence, strength, and ambition for power. Thanos has wielded the Cosmic Cube, the Infinity Gauntlet, and even the heart of the universe. He's 6'7", 985 pounds, which is... I don't even know how that's possible at 6'7", but it's just interesting. Again, some fun facts. Eye color is red. He has no hair. His skin is gray-purple. Furrowed chin. The Eternal Colony Titan is the place of birth. It's a moon of Saturn. His citizenship is Titan, the Dynamo City. His education, combination of formal Titanian education and self-teaching. And then, of course, some of his known relatives is Nebula, and Thane, and Uranus, and Cersei, and I think Gamora as well, his foster daughter. So his ability at the start of the game, shuffle the 6 Infinity Stones into your deck. First off, second dinner, when you release this Thanos animation that we've been waiting on, it better be legit. What I've been seeing online is mad weak. So, you know, you see something like Galactus and you're like, wow, it's absolutely incredible. And then you see Kang. I feel like there should be some audio with Kang as well. You know, the music is fine, but he should be saying something, right? You know, I think that having that extra audio sound of him like inflicting his words, you know, you can even use Jonathan Major using some powerful words, you know, like where he said, "Have I killed you before?" I don't know what he says in Ant-Man or something like that. Have I killed you before? Something like that would be cool that they should introduce into the game. So then, again, with Thanos, it's the Power Stone that's really the issue, right? Ongoing, if you played all 6 stones, Thanos has a 10 plus power. So I'm okay if they nerf him back to an 8. Who cares? That Thanos, I loved him at a 6'11". I would promote him to stay at a 6'11" and then get buffed up to a 6'21". I'm not going to argue too much on that if they end up doing that. So my suggestion is this. He stays at a 6'11", and with his ability, all the stones are played, he becomes a 6'21". But then, let's say he gets countered, he should bump up to a 6'12" without his ability. And I think with Thanos, because he has so many nemesis that are against him, it should be one of those if 2 or more nemesis are present, right? So some of his weaknesses are decapitation, according to Thanos himself. The only way to permanently kill him was to cut off his head from his body after Thor Odinson nearly killed him. With Stormbreaker, Thanos stated that he should have gone for the head. Thor later heeded to his advice and decapitated Thanos. Infinity Stones. Thanos was vulnerable to the power of the Infinity Stones after using all 6 stones twice. Thanos was nearly killed and left in a weakened state. So, I'm going to take a little liberty here. I thought this was cool that we could do. We could use even Kang currently in the game as a foe for him. Now, not when you use Kang, because I do have a big baddie deck. I love using it. I have Null, I have Kang, I have Thanos, and I have Galactus all in one deck. I even have Aero in the deck. I basically just made this deck that's so souped up, it's fantastic. I'm one of those people that probably piss you off when you get whooped. Again, my suggestions would help that, right? The game should have cards much easily acquired, and then you could do it too, right? And then we could all be having fun. But one thing that could happen here is Kang. I thought this would be really cool when you play Kang, or the opponent plays Kang. If they played Kang and I played one of the stones at the same time when they played Kang, when I have a Thanos deck, it should weaken Thanos so that he used the stone twice. Time just got reverted, but it shouldn't matter. Kang interacted with that stone that was played, causing him to play it twice. And if he plays it twice, or it could even be like, if you play this stone again for the next turn, it hinders Thanos and he can't become a 6/12. Like, he becomes threatened. Like, even if you play the Power Stone, which is a 1/3, if you play that Time Stone again that you played the previous turn when Kang reversed time, you're going to lose out on that. That would be really cool. And I'm a Thanos player. I love that. And it would get you to think, right? And maybe you go, you know what? Maybe I can't win with Thanos this time. I might have to retreat. You know, I want to not be biased, right? I want to be unbiased in my opinion with all of this. So some other foes of Thanos is Thor, of course, Odin, Abigail Brand, Axis, or Adam Warlock, Angel. When you just start to go through, I mean, there's Beast, Billy Basin, Black Bolt, Black Cat, Black Goliath. You know, literally the alphabet of every single hero in the Marvel lore has fought Thanos. As you go through it, Blue Marvel, there was like pages and pages and pages of heroes who fought him. So that's why I thought it'd be unique where 2 or more of his nemesis should be on the board, right? He has that unique ability where you just gotta roll deep, right? You gotta have a squad. Maybe it should be 3 or more. You know, maybe you can counter Thanos by just saying, hey, I play 3 Guardians of the Galaxies, or I play 3 X-Men. And when you play 3 X-Men, hey, then Thanos can't become a 6/21, right? So and then maybe that pool should be limited, you know, because people might be annoyed by that, because it seems like most of the cards in the game probably are nemesis to Thanos. But I think, again, there should be multiple counters to Thanos from not being able to buff up to a 6/21. And then if he does get countered, like I said earlier, instead of becoming a 6/21 when you play all the stones, he should be able to, you still have to play all the stones, now he becomes a 6/12, which I think will be unique. So, and maybe you might not think it's worth the 1 point if he stays at a 6/11. We can maybe negotiate and make him a 6/15. But at the very least, something like that should be enabled in the game that allows Thanos players to keep playing as Thanos. And then people who can't stand that fool can have exactly what they want. All right, I just have to play 2 or 3 nemesises, or I don't even think that's the word, but 2 or 3 opponents of Thanos on the board so that I negate his ability of getting all the way up to a 21 power. So I think that'd be really cool. And you can use cards that currently are in the game. Black Bolt's already in the game. You just add a Nemesis counter to Black Bolt and voila. Blue Marvel's already in the game. Ant-Man's already in the game. Angel's already in the game. Angela is already in the game. You know, there's Baron, no, not Baron Mordo. There's Baron Kazar, or Karza. But Beta Ray Bill is, you know, all these cards could be added into the game or already in the game who could be counters for a card like Thanos. Now, I tend to think if no one listens to me and they're annoyed and you know, we don't make some of the changes that I'm recommending, then I think what's going to happen is as we move from Leech to Aero to Cosmo to Shuri, we'll eventually get to a card that, in my opinion, is the most annoying card in the game, and I still don't think we should nerf him, is Shang Chi. How this dude can just kick all +9 cards in the face, 9+ cards in the face, makes no sense to me, but that's fine. So let's go into Shang-Chi and a little bit about him. Shang-Chi is the son of sinister Chinese mastermind. He's raised and trained in the martial arts by his father and his instructors, a spy, a romantic, a philosopher, and an avenger. As one of the best martial artists in the Marvel Universe, Shang chooses to use his talents to fight evil and defend the innocent. 5'10", $175, brown eyes, his hair is black. He's Chinese and American, but he was born in Hunan, People's Republic of China. Some of his occupation is Supreme Commander of the 5 Weapons Society, formerly a secret agent and a fisherman. So, some of his known relatives is Zhang Zhu, Jiang Li, Zhang Yi, Brother Saber, Sister Staff, Sister Dagger, Brother Staff, Midnight Sun, an adopted brother. And as we know, he's a 4/3, destroy all, enemy cards at this location that have 9 or more power. So I think we should keep Shang-Chi the same. But I know that a lot of people would probably come hunting for Shang-Chi as well. Because right now, he's on reveal, so Cosmo counters him. Armor counters him. But we want to have more cards in the game, right? And more ways of stopping cards like Shang-Chi. So he's got some nemesis, right? The Abyss, Adder, Boomerang, Bullet, Doctor Doom, Bullseye, Shang-Fly, Null, Mandarin, Punisher, Silver Samurai, Taskmaster, of course my man Thanos, Typhoid Mary, Viper, and many more. He's got like 4 pages of foes. But in the MCU, one known weakness of the 10 rings was demonstrated in the MCU when the rings were up against the power of nature. It slowed down the 10 rings, making them kind of static and predictable. So then there might be some heroes or villains that have nature associated with them, maybe like Storm, that will hinder Shang-Chi if it's played in that particular lane. But again, I think we should have more counters to Shang-Chi than just armor, than just Cosmo, by directly pulling from the lore. So you already know if I think he should stay the same and keep his ability at a 4-3, that his nemesis counter should buff him. So if he could just snap and kick people in the face who are 9+ power, then that means if Shang-Chi gets on the board and he can't kick a dude in the face or an entire lane of 10+ heroes, then he should be buffed up himself dynamically in the game. So if you try to kick someone and he's a 4-3, then let's say he gets disabled because at the end you reveal Doctor Doom, well, then one of his Doom bots come out, well, then he should get buffed up to a 4-9 or 4-10 without his ability. You see? So now the person gets rewarded for, one, either kicking that opponent in the face and you just didn't have the cards you needed, even though you had majority of the cards accessible to you, or 2, if you got countered, now it's just about who's got the most points, right? Because Doctor Doom came out, so he can't do anything anymore. All your 9-cost cards or above are saved in that particular location, and then it's just about who wins, right? So, again, I do think these nemesis counters haven't been 100% thoroughly thought out. I'm sure someone's going to come up with, what about this situation? What about that situation? But again, if we look at the overall points of what I'm trying to make, I think we have a really great solution to keep cards as is. And there are 2 cards that I'm going to talk about that just recently got nerfed that I'd like to get closer to closing my video with. Hopefully it's not going to be a little too much longer. But I want to bring up Zabu. And then after Zabu, we're going to bring up Silver Surfer. These cards really annoyed me with what Second Dinner did, right? These were monthly premium pass cards that nearly everyone that I probably can think of purchased. And what did Second Dinner do? They didn't give a rip. They just made the changes, and for some reason it felt like some of the YouTubers were just like, well, that's just what happens. Probably because you can monetize your videos and you can make money, so you don't really give a rip, right? You spent $2K, $3K, however much on the game. It didn't matter to you. You making that money back. So you just you want to promote the game, right? And not be too negative, which I don't want to be negative as well. But I'm not making this video to make money. I'm making this video to share my grievances with what Second Dinner has done, which has frustrated me. And I think it's frustrated a lot of people. I want to invoke change for the better. Again, it might go in one ear and right out the other, but I message these fools on support. I message in the comments on YouTubers, and now I'm just making my own dang YouTube video. And I've done everything that I possibly could do. If the game goes to hell in a handbasket, which I tend to think it will if they don't make the necessary changes, then so be it. Then I'll just be a person who will stop playing the game, as sad as it is. But Zabu, they basically robbed us, guys. I don't know how anyone else can see it any other way, unless you're just ignoring reality. He was a 3-2, and he could drop the cost of your 4-cost cards. I already know right off the bat, people are going to be like, bro, you can't bring Zabu back to where he was because he was annoying people with Spider-Man and Absorbing Man. We already have a counter to that argument as well. So he should go back to a 3-2. But let's talk about Zabu for a second, right? Keep with the theme. He's a Sabretooth, Khazar's mentor, raising him and teaching him in the ways of the Savage Land. He's about 4 foot at the shoulders, 800 pounds. You're dead if this tiger jumps on you. Green eyes, orange hair. He was born in the Savage Land. His known masters are Khazar and Kevin Plunder. His distinguishing features are 2 saber-like fangs. So before he was a 3-2, your 4-cost cards cost 2 less, minimum 1. And then now he got nerfed to a 2-2. Ongoing, your 4-cost cards cost 1 less, minimum of 1. So he's basically a Psylocke, which is stupid. But he's a Psylocke specifically for your 4-cost cards, right? So, and he's ongoing, right? Because, you know, Psylocke is just on reveal the next card or whatever. But, you know, again, it's frustrating. So I think I'm going to suggest that we restore him back to the 3-2. Now let's address the Spider-Man issue, right? First of all, I didn't really have a problem with the Spider-Man issue. I was okay with it. Was I one of those people using it? No. Did I use it every once in a while? I did, but I didn't abuse it. I didn't see the big deal. But again, if you take the overall approach that I'm suggesting with all of this, that Spider-Man, Absorbing Man issue goes away, right? So if you restore him back to a 3-2 with the ability, let's talk about Spider-Man real quick. So to address Spider-Man and Absorbing Man, I'm just going to read this. I wrote this down earlier. To address Spider-Man's and Absorbing Man, the combo issue, to counter Spider-Man locking out a location, he cannot lock out all heroes and villains. So his Nemesis counter can override his webbing. For example, Scorpion, Rhino, Hobgoblin, and Green Goblin. In these examples, they can be played, but Rhino can destroy, but he can't destroy the location. And then the Goblins can be played, but their impact is positive for the player playing the card. So they're like, Spider-Man should only really hinder other players that aren't, or other heroes or villains who aren't direct nemesis to Spider-Man. But then if you're a nemesis to Spider-Man, I'm just gonna rip your web apart and I'm gonna do whatever it is that I want to do, right? Hobgoblin, now you might go, well, Hobgoblin, he won't be able to move to the other side and give -8. That's debatable. He could either still do it if you want to take that risk and throw it over there, or you just allow Hobgoblin to play in that location and he just gets buffed, right? Because you might be thinking, the Spider-Man's his nemesis, then how do you stop, how does Hobgoblin do what he needs to do? Well, then that's what you do, right? When you play Hobgoblin, he's no longer a negative, he's a positive. And again, it just comes down to the amount of points that the opponent's or your opponent has, and you see whoever wins. But that interaction doesn't happen with every single card in the game. Just cards that are identified as nemesis counters. So, same thing with Rhino. You play Rhino, he rips through the web, but he doesn't destroy the location, right? You play one of the Goblins, they don't go to the other side, they just become a positive. So instead of a 5 -8, he can become a 5-8 and help you. Or instead of a 3 -3, he becomes a 3-3 and he helps you. So that's an easy way to counter that, so you don't get Spider-Man, right? So then if you start seeing a bunch of Absorbing Man and Spider-Man everywhere, all you got to do is just go, all right, I need at least 1 or 2 foes of Spider-Man. There's a few, right? And also, we're not even just talking about foes of Zabu. So you could have foes of Zabu and foes of Spider-Man. And in my opinion, when Absorbing Man copies the on-reveal ability, he should automatically, in a sense, become that hero. So if he copies Spider-Man, it should just be 2 Spider-Mans. So whoever the foe is, that's just what he becomes, right? So that foe can therefore land in the Absorbing Man spot as well. But direct foes to Zabu, because this is where the conversation started, there's Devil Dinosaur, already in the game. Claw, already in the game. Sauron, Thanos, of course, because he hates everyone, he's already in the game. These are cards that directly counter, that should be able to be played in said location, even though Zabu's on the board, right? And Zabu, when he gets countered, I think he should be buffed. And I think he should be buffed pretty significantly, because when you play Zabu the way the old way used to play him, you could play 2 4-cost cards on turn 4. And you could put 12 points on the board. So that means when Zabu gets countered, he should be a 3-8 or 3-12. right? If you played a White Queen and you played Rock Slide, that's 6/6, that's 12 points. So I have zero issues if that were to happen where you counter Zabu and now you know, man, this Zabu about to be a 3/12, but I'm going to stop him from being able to play 4 cost cards. So is it worth it to give him a 3/12, right? It gives you agency again, man. It puts the power in your hand. I don't know how anyone can really argue this because, like, if we just think it out, right? We can think out how to balance certain cards that get played, but again, get played with nemesis counters in mind. And I think we can come to a solution where both players can enjoy the cards as is, because what we're seeing is Second Dinner can't really test anything, so they keep giving us these cards we think are really great and then just ruining the experience. I think the same thing's going to happen with the teenage Megasonic chick that's supposed to come out. She's going to be basically Leader Part 2 again, right? She's going to come out, she's going to be great. People are going to use Moon Girl, and what's going to happen? They're going to just nerf her. Everyone's going to rush to go get her. Series 5, because it's going to be like, Leader's back, but it's not Leader, right? And then you play her, she just destroys whatever you do, because the concept with Leader is get ahead and then just play Leader, and then you just copy whatever it is they do. Now, depending on the cards, like we talked about earlier, at Angela and Bishop, you know, copying those cards is nothing you can do about that, right? Because those cards are normally set down beforehand and they just add power as you play cards to that location or just play cards in general on the board. So if we just had cards like this in the game, people already have Devil Dinosaur, right? So if you saw someone play Zabu on turn 3, you know, if you wanted to cheat Devil Dinosaur out, great. You could play Claw on turn 5. Sauron you could play on turn 3, right? So you could just have Sauron out and you say, hey, I see a lot of people rocking that Zabu, so I'm going to play an ongoing a negative ongoing deck, and my negative ongoing deck will stop Zabu players. So again, just focusing on the Marvel lore would really make a lot of changes to how the game is played if we just created a nemesis counter. And this leads to my last card that I'm going to discuss for the day, and then I'm just going to end on a couple interesting things or features I think we can put in the game. Thank you for those who've been watching and listening to this video for this long. Again, I'm trying to be one and done. I'm just trying to make one video. And if you guys like this, you like this format, or you suggest any changes, I will. I'm not really expecting a lot of people to see this, but if they do, great. And hopefully it's a positive impact on the community. So the last card, I already hinted at it earlier, is Silver Surfer. So Norin Rad of Zinla is the mighty herald of Galactus, devourer of worlds, gifted with a power cosmic and a trusty board that's faster than light speed, which he can summon at will whenever needed. Norin Rad travels to distant reaches throughout the universe as the Silver Surfer. He's 6'1", 180 pounds. His eyes are silver but formerly blue, and he doesn't have any hair. Right now, he's a 3/2. On reveal, give your 3 cost cards plus 2 power. Now, again, I got really frustrated that I spent money to buy this card. It got changed. And I spent money to buy cards as I was increasing my pool 3 to supplement or to partner a combo with Silver Surfer. So it's like, well, let's not just talk about the cards that got nerfed, right, directly. Let's talk about the cards that suffered from the decks that I wanted to build that also, in a sense, got nerfed indirectly. But, you know, it's whatever. So then, I think this card, of course, should go back to what it was before. A 3/0 on reveal, give your other 3 cost cards plus 3. I don't see the problem with Silver Surfer at all. You know, again, if they just buff other cards in the game, like in general, a lot of cards that are kind of trash, like Elektra and Wasp, and we could probably go on and on, those cards should get buffed. I don't know why they're in the game. There's probably 50 to 60% of the cards in the game that are just terrible and don't really get used at all, and they should be buffed as well. But some of his weaknesses are kind of weird, but so I won't go into the weakness because it's not really a weakness from what I really read. There might be other websites or whatever out there that go into more detail than what I found. But some of his foes are Abomination, in the game. Atuma, in the game. Baron Mordo, Black Bolt, Blackheart, I want him in the game. Cable, Carnage, Collector, and so much more, right? So there you have it. You play cards like Black Bolt, or Cable, or Carnage, or Atuma, and they should be able to hinder Silver Surfer from doing what he does, right? That would solve that problem. And then again, how do you balance this out for the person who has Silver Surfer in their deck and they built an entire Silver Surfer deck? Well then, they still play the 3-cost cards, right? They still have Maximus, which is a 3/7. They still have Juggernaut and Storm that locks out a lane. But then Silver Surfer himself should get buffed. So whenever one of these cards come out, Baron Mordo, Atuma, Abomination, Surfer should be bumped up to how many points that he often buffs all of the board, right? So he should go from a 3-0 to like a 3-9 or a 3-12. Again, I think when we think about the game and we see how we want to balance it all out, these types of the changes that I've suggested, I think are very economical and make a lot of sense, and it rewards both players, right? You know what's going to happen when you stop that Silver Surfer deck. Is it worth it? They know what could happen if they get countered, so then they still need to play smart to try to help themselves win. It's really cool to still have the ability to go to turn 6 and potentially still win, knowing that the counters out there could hinder you. Now just imagine the cool aspect of being like, I know there's counters, but I'm playing specifically this way that even if I get countered, I still win, right? Who's gonna be upset when you have that kind of power? When you tell the person who says, I can't stand Silver Surfer, he's pissing me off, that he could stop him from buffing, and then the person who is using Silver Surfer who sees that card come out, oh, it doesn't matter, bro. I'm still gonna win because I'm gonna get 12 points or 9 points on my Surfer. If I play him here, I still win. You see how that works? It's really awesome. I think it's really dynamic. And to kind of end on this video, I want to talk about a few other cool positive things and just kind of leave a question out there for second dinner. So first off, you know, there's a couple games I can reference that does something like this. We should have theme teams and theme abilities. So in addition to buffing cards individually, we should have theme teams. Like HeroClix is it's kind of like a board game, but not really, because you don't play on boards. But it's kind of like chess, but with heroes, and it's Marvel HeroClix and DC and Star Wars. They got a bunch of stuff. Really niche group of people, nerds like myself. Really great game, but again, if you love Marvel, man, you probably are gonna love HeroClix if you haven't heard of it. And they have that concept of theme teams and theme abilities. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 has this as well. So like for instance, Guardians of the Galaxy, X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Avengers, Midnight Suns, New Avengers. There should be something in the game that says, not only are there Nemesis counters and then the specific ability of the card, then there should be a theme team. Like, you are a member of the X-Men, and when you have X amount of members on the board, they get buffed. Now imagine that. I don't want to complicate the game, but it would be cool to know that when I play 4 or 5 X-Men on the board, and then there's Nemesis counters, the Nemesis counters could be overcome by having synergy with a team. So now you're adding another element in the game to get people to think, the big brain move that I hear everyone talk about. It's really cool. You're teaching people math, you're giving people more power, you're giving them other ways to still keep playing cards. That's, I think, is the key. You still want to be able to play cards in the game and not just go, leader got nerfed, he's trash. No one's playing leader. As soon as they made that change, I removed leader from all of the decks that I was using him in. When they made the change to Zabu, almost the exact same thing. Zabu was in a ton of decks that I had. Boom, he's in maybe like 1 right now. A negative nerf, a negative deck. Same thing with Silver Surfer. Actually, I don't have any Surfer decks anymore, because you see how weak he is. You see how when you go up against some of these other decks that are favored at the moment, how he's just so weak. Again, everyone turning these decks into all being Patriot decks, all versions of Patriot. That's boring. But imagine if you had theme teams where the Forces of Nature, Family Values, Hydra, Masters of Evil, Power Cosmic, Spider-Man Ally, Minions of Doom, scrolls. And if basically, you create rules, right? I'm not saying I have all the ideas right off the top of my head here, but if you had 2 or 3 or more of these heroes in your deck and their play, all your cards get a buff, right? +1, +2, +3. I don't care what it is, but it would be really cool to have something like that. Again, giving you more agency over designing your decks. We should not let the power of designing our decks fall on Second Dinner. The power should be left on you. You and I can learn to be better players and make better decisions or add unique cards to our deck. And by doing that, then we have control over whether we want to be Shuri'd, whether we want to be leadered, leeched, whether we want Silver Surfer to fly all over our board and buff all that, like whether we want to be Shang Chi'd. I'm trying to give you the power back and take the power away from Second Dinner, so they just give you the tools to have fun with this card game. And I think if they do stuff like this, this game will last forever. Lastly, I do think even something like the end game mechanic that Dracula has or that Captain Marvel has, that also could be countered with the Nemesis counter. You look up Dracula's Nemesises, you look up, Captain Marvel's, and the same thing, right? You just buff Captain Marvel. She can't fly to another location, but now she's a 6/10, right? Cool, that's great. You still win that location, or you don't win that location, whatever it may be. And lastly, I want to end this with a question to Second Dinner, which is, what's stopping them from adding new cards into the game? And why aren't they adding new non-ability heroes and villain cards into the game just for better stats and better rewards? Because this is something that I've thought about. They've been very, very they drag their feet on releasing cards and putting everything into pool 5, which they really should be putting cards into pool 3. They clearly rank their cards, right? They don't look at Kang and Thanos and Dazzler exactly the same, right? Dazzler is she's not a big baddie like they always like to use. So if you're ranking your cards and Kang is a big baddie, well then guess what? Then maybe only big baddies should get released in Series 5, and non-big baddies should never get released in Series 5. They should be released in Series 4 and then drop down to Series 3, which would actually make the game much better. And then people could get those cards easily. And then I do like the ideas that I hear from some others where they talk about how there should be a store where you can cycle through the cards. Yeah, why can't I just use my tokens and buy exactly the card that I want? I think that makes a lot of sense instead of cycling through, waiting 8 hours a day. So I'm gonna end this video with just saying, I think you guys should put the pressure on Second Dinner, right? They're making the money and they're taking away our fun. I'm not having nearly as much fun with this game as I did before. Maybe I'm by myself, and that's fine. I tend to think that I'm not. That's why I said I'm making this one video. We'll see if there's a response, if I'm going to make more. But I wanted to get this out here. Wanted to share my opinion with all of you guys. To, one, get some feelers. Maybe I am by myself. That's fine. I'm okay with being the only person in the room. But maybe, just maybe, there's more. So hopefully you guys like these ideas. Thank you for those who stayed here and watched the entire video for an hour and 18 minutes ongoing. Peace, love, and happiness. God bless you. I pray for you all that you do well, you have a successful life, and have a great day.